Fala, rapaziada. Hoje vamos ver de novo. Agora é a segunda parte. Ontem vimos 20 ou 30 minutos, não sei. Eu sei que eu vi em off um pouquinho. E agora vamos ver o restante aquele vídeo, pô. Do, 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 do Vivi o Dia, por favor. Tá faltando, ó, 22 minutinhos. Let's go?
The test. But for language learning, when you want the information to stay alive for your entire life, you need a different mechanism. And in my opinion, the best mechanism, the really only mechanism, is compelling input. Compelling input tells your brain to keep this automatically.
There's an assumption here that we've got compelling input. Lots of languages don't have compelling input in the early stages or at any stage. Maybe that's because I've lived a different experience to yourself. Spanish being, one of the most spoken languages in the world, there's plenty of compelling input. But even for Mandarin Chinese in the early stages, there is no compelling input. Like, there literally isn't. There's no, like, to give you a great example for Spanish, there's multiple YouTube channels which provide compelling input for people interested in gaming with thousands of hours of content, okay? For beginners, then intermediate, then advanced, then native level. It all exists. But in Chinese, guess what? There's not one channel beyond this, like, one channel, it's got 5 videos. There's not one channel that has compelling input for people interested in gaming in the early stages, the intermediate stages, the upper. It just doesn't exist at all at any stage. It only comes at native level. So again, for Spanish, this makes sense. And this is where you need to tailor your program to whatever situation you're in. For Esperanto, when I started, there was literally no compelling videos. Like, I made the compelling videos for other people. Now, I know that's an edge case, but there's lots of people out there learning languages such as Mandarin Chinese, which they're just not going to find compelling input in. Yeah, it fucking sucks.
So information stores itself instead of needing an algorithm to keep it propped up.
Eu entrei no vídeo no meio, eu não tô entendendo muita coisa não. Peguei pela metade. Na verdade, não peguei pela metade. Eu vi a metade ontem, mas peguei pela metade, literalmente.
I think people who do flashcards seriously underestimate the power of emotional connections with the language. There are words that I've heard literally just one time that I will never forget because of how emotionally impactful those words were.
I agree with this, and I've actually spoken about this in previous videos where, for example, traumatic events are great. Don't go out and traumatize yourself, but there
Tá falando que esse cara aqui, ó, não o Evil Dia, esse cara aqui. Tá falando que o pessoal de flashcards são subestimados.
an example of you have one experience and it sticks forever, but you have very little control over that. That's the problem.
When I heard them. When you look at spaced repetition compared to that, it just feels so sterile to me. It takes language learning, which is super experience based.
Well, obviously that's a subjective experience, and if that's your experience, then fine, don't use flashcards.
And it boils it down to what feels like test taking. Before we move to the next section, I want to make a concession here. This dead information stuff, this applies a lot more to intermediate and advanced learners, because beginners, if you're learning a word as a beginner, it's probably going to be a word that you're going to keep seeing continuously. These are like high frequency words. So if you're going to keep seeing the word anyway, this dead information stuff really doesn't apply. There's a moment in Evil Dia's video where he opens up his flashcard app and he shows all of like his decks and things like that. And in my opinion, this is what made me more anti-flashcard than where I started. Because what I saw on the stream was like at least tens of hours of work, maybe like 20 or 30 hours of work. I don't know, probably more.
I don't know how much work, but it's nowhere near that. Like, I'll spend maybe 10 minutes a day creating new flashcards. Usually to practice 1 or 2 structures. And then I'll do like 30 minutes to 40 minutes of reviews, depending.
O cara falou que o Evil Dia deve gastar muito tempo com flashcards, mas ele tá falando que gasta 10 criando, 40 utilizando o sistema, né?
And that might sound like a lot, but I actually consider that time that is better spent than trying. Like, I see 40 minutes of Anki is equal to like 3 hours of just pure input. Like, that's how I see it. This is based on my
40 minutos de Enki e 3 horas de input.
My experience doing Dreaming Spanish, the Dreaming Spanish series I've got, and also my experience learning Esperanto, my experience learning Mandarin Chinese. So that is a judgment that I have deemed to be worthy. Like, And also, as a programmer, this type of stuff doesn't bother me at all.
No idea. According to Evil Dia, to make flashcards actually do their job, you need audio cards, sentence cards, multiple cards per word covering different patterns, different decks for listening, producing, and reading.
Okay, you don't need this. Maybe this was
Você não precisa disso.
I should have cleared this up in my video. But I showed you guys all the different ones because Chinese is a beast of a language, okay? Most people don't understand how much more difficult Chinese is to Spanish. The audio cards are to help, in my mind, the audio cards are to help you to basically understand information-dense words. So when you hear a word, like you guys have all had this experience where you'll hear a number and like the number just goes over your top. You're like, yeah, I know it was a number, but like I don't know what the number was because it's just so information dense. Audio cards are great for that. Training your brain to break down those really information dense sounds and just getting that lightning fast. Now, there are programs.
Ele tá falando que ele faz do jeito que ele faz o card, repetido vários números, por conta que no chinês os números passam muito rápido por conta de não ser tenso, não ter o... eu não sei se tensão é o nome que fala, mas enfim.
And games that allow you to do that as well, but there's also other information dense words. And I think I gave an example of Meiga Joey, which is like every second Monday, okay? So you got Meiga. Did I pronounce that right? Meiga Yiga Joey. I think I pronounced that wrong. So Meiga is like at a gap of Yiga 1, Joey Monday. So if you hear that in conversation, it's so information dense, your brain just got to go, I don't know what that was. And that's where audio cards come in. So if you don't have that problem, then you don't need audio cards. The second one, sentence cards, that was for production practice. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you know all the words, you know all the grammar, yet you're unable to produce a sentence?
Não tô pegando o microfone do meu microfone. Pegando a webcam. Deixa o áudio. Alô? Alô? Agora tá bom? Acho que agora tá bom. Tava pegando da webcam, cara. Que merda. Sempre vou ter que ficar vendo, então.
Like with flow, that's where sentence cards come in handy. That's why I could say straight up in this video, 现在在这个视频里我们讨论这个话题. That's why I can say at this moment in this video we are discussing this topic. It's because I practice production, okay?
Yeah.
Now, I am not that fluent with all of Chinese. You might have heard that one. Fucking hell, Evil Dear, your Chinese is fluent. I'm not. I'm fluent with very select portions of Chinese because I practice those. And with time, I'll get better with the whole language. As I say, I'm around a B1 level. You need multiple cards per word. You don't need, but I've found my brain is very smart in the fact that it's able to pick up, like I'm able to see the shape of a sentence and just know the outcome. So I kind of trick it and teach it that, you know, having multiple flashcards, there's actually a pattern I want it to understand here. You don't need to do that, but you can. You need listening, production, reading. Reading decks is not going to be needed for pretty much any language except for a language like fucking Chinese, okay? It's like Spanish, you don't need it. Esperanto, you don't need it. English, you don't need it. You just practice reading.
O que ele tá falando é que ele precisa de fazer isso quando é por conta do chinês, do idioma, né, chinês. Porque se ele fosse fazer em espanhol, ele não ia fazer desse jeito. Se ele fosse fazer em outras culturas, idiomas.
Reading, you'll get there. Like, it's not like there's fucking tens of thousands of different characters. That's what a reading deck is for. But yeah, like, these are...
Isso aí, é tensão diferente de caracteres.
This was more a case of me taking on essentially one of the hardest languages in the world and how I deal with different parts of that.
You have to build templates, generate audio, organize decks, all before you can actually use flashcards to learn a language in the first place. So this brings me to the last reason I'm anti-flashcard, and it's probably the most practical reason for anybody who's just getting into language learning, and that's a concept from economics called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the value of whatever you didn't do because you chose to do something else. If you...
So the way I see this, and I understand what you're going to say, is basically, oh, you got to spend all this time doing this and you consider it wasted time. I actually see this as a investment in time that pays off later down the road. If we were to look at this as in business perspective, since that's the route we're going to go right now, you always see this in companies. What can we do right now to make some form of progress. Let's do that. However, there was a second route they could have taken. They could have invested some time to build out the systems that they needed and then progressed faster. Okay, so basically we can start progressing right now and make some progress, or we build out the systems and then we make rapid progress. So that's what I see Anki as. Yes, it takes time, you need to learn it, but it is an investment that is worth it in the long run. It actually beats out most other things. That's how I see it.
Spend an hour prepping flashcards. The opportunity cost is whatever you didn't do because you spent that hour creating flashcards. Every hour we spend prepping for a day of study is just an hour we could have spent actually learning the language. Throughout his video, Evil Dia repeatedly says that doing flashcards wrong is a real problem. Not drilling variable structures is bad, not having audio cards is bad, single word cards are bad, matching pairs are bad. That implies there's a legitimate skill floor. Before flashcards can even start helping you, you first
That is correct. You do need to learn how to use flashcards. I agree with you.
have to understand the science of flashcards. And then you have to invest real time figuring out what you think you need to study. And
It becomes very easy once you do understand it though. Basically, you put in there the structures, like if this was a production deck, you put in there the structures you realize you struggle with. That's it.
then finally, after you have the science and figuring out what you need, then you have to actually create the flashcards. So you have to know enough about the language to know what you need to know. Then you need to design a system for yourself. Then you need to build that system. And finally, you can actually
Aprender o suficiente sobre o que você, sobre a língua que você quer saber, o que você precisa. Eu sei que não é desenhar, mas design. Desenhar um sistema certificado para você mesmo ensinar essas coisas, construir o sistema. Agora você pode começar.
use the flashcards. To me, that sounds like a huge time investment, especially if you're just getting in.
Up front, it's a couple of hours of watching Anki videos at the beginning, maybe like max a couple of hours. Like realistically, you get like someone who has some level of tech savviness, they'll figure it out pretty quickly. Within an hour, you know what to do. And if you watch a couple of videos from people who have done it for a while, you kind of get a feel for how you want to do it. And then generating cards doesn't take that long. And yeah, you could spend 40 minutes, whatever, or 30 minutes in Anki doing reviews per day, and you may feel like that's wasted time because you're not doing that with the language. However, if you've done this long enough, like I have, with multiple languages, you realize quite quickly, bro, this helps a lot.
Into a language. It gives you tons of preliminary homework. Input doesn't really have that problem. The skill floor is basically on the ground.
No, actually. I've learned from my Dreaming Spanish series that there is a lot of mistakes you can make with input if you do just a pure input route. The mistakes is a lot of people, like you'll hear the common one, okay, it must be 98% comprehensible before you start watching, which means that 98% of those nodes and their associated connections you already know, and you're just trying to slot in a little bit here and there, okay? Now, obviously, the skill issue here is, well, you got to find that content. You could watch content for like a couple of minutes and then realize it's too hard or it's too easy. You got to find, as you said, content that's at a level that's actually interesting. There's plenty of ways to screw it up. Okay, you may end up watching too much of a certain type of content and getting good at that one thing while lacking in others. Like, you literally just got to look at the comment section to my Dreaming Spanish series and on Reddit, and people will always tell you how I'm doing listening wrong. Like, everyone's got their opinion about how to do it right.
There's no wrong way to listen to something you understand. There's no system to build. There's no decks to maintain. The only thing you really have to figure...
So there's no way to listen to something you understand. Well, there is.
There's no system to build. There's no decks to maintain. The only thing you really have to figure...
So there's no way to listen to something you understand. Well, there is. You might understand it, but you might not understand it well enough to actually pick up words from it. You might understand 90% of it, and then there's like 10% which all as a conjunction, like together, you don't understand, and therefore you never pick up what's in that 10%, and you're basically just rehashing what you already know.
Your route is fine.
Esqueci de falar com vocês, cheguei dos 50 horas de input, tá? Cheguei, finalmente cheguei. 50 horas, não parece nada, mas é 50 horas, gente, de input. E melhorou. Um pouquinho, bem pouquinho, assim. Tipo assim, não é crescente assim, ó. Vou até mudar de tela pra vocês verem. O crescimento não é assim, não é exponencial assim. É assim, é uma linha bem assim, ó. Não parece que tá andando pra cima, Mas tá andando. Bem de pouco, mas tá andando.
Finding content at your level. Even if you want to argue there's some skill floor for input, eventually you're going to have to get over that anyway. Because eventually you'll need to understand people speaking the language you want to learn. And let's say you're somebody who...
That is true. But again, I see it, and I said in my video that I think the time that you put into flashcards will speed up any input you do by like 3 times. Depending on the types of flashcards you're doing and what you're focused on.
Does want targeted practice. In my opinion, the best way to get targeted practice is just listen to the same video over and over again. Or on my website, Langualytics, you can generate a transcript
Tá, pra ele a melhor prática é você ver a mesma coisa toda hora.
and just listen to the same sentence over and over again. And that would be way faster than constructing this whole, system of flashcards for you.
Okay, this is going to be a bit of a cheap shot. But bro, you built an entire website for yourself to do this, okay? You built an entire website. That's time invested. You invested time. You invested a lot of time to build a website, probably way more time than I ever did with Anki. Now I can then say, yeah, but you got a business and you're trying to sell stuff to it. And there's probably plenty of other websites that do the same stuff as your website out there. But you can't be sitting here and saying, well, you're wasting a lot of time building Anki cards while I've just built an entire website. Okay, I've had my cheap shot now. I'll move on.
And I did that. I was never an ALG purist, but when I was looking for exercises to do in the beginning of my journey, what I really didn't want to do is construct this gigantic flashcard apparatus. Instead, I wanted to look for exercises that kind of already existed without me having to put in any work. So I did transcription exercises, and I did rewatching videos with English subtitles and Spanish subtitles. That stuff I did. Am I recommending?
Yeah, you can do that, but like there's also people that hate rewatching the same thing over and over. Like some people can do that perfectly fine. Like I'm actually one of those, I can do it fine. But I know people who literally...
Eu também não gosto não de ficar vendo a mesma coisa toda vez. Se não for uma série do meu agrado, eu não gosto não, tá doido.
Literally cannot watch the same thing twice, otherwise it drives them insane.
Sending it to you, not necessarily, but my point is that I skipped over all of this setup that I would have needed if I got into the
But you built a website.
World of flashcards. When Evil Dia is showing off his flashcard decks and talking about all the complexities and nuances you have to understand, if I was to do that, I would say it like more apologetically, like, hey guys, I know this is a ton of work, but like it's really, really helpful. But
why would I be apologetic about that? If you don't want to do it, just don't do it. Like, why would I be like, I'm sorry guys, I've just created this system that works fucking amazing for me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. If you can't use the system, I'm sorry, you're just low IQ. It's your own fault for being low IQ, You're just limited. I gotta use the correct polyglot terminology. You're just limited.
he doesn't seem to frame it that way. To me,
why would I frame it that way? If you don't like systems like this, then don't do that. Like there's other YouTubers that have got like this crazy ass calendar system about how they practice things at certain
Tô entendendo nada.
times and certain hours and stuff like that. Like I'm not gonna be like, hey bro, that's complex, you should apologize.
me, it comes off more like he's selling flashcards as like a polyglot lifestyle choice.
Bro, you came to the one channel who's not selling anything at the moment. I'll probably sell something in the future. But like, I'm not selling anything here. I have literally the entire series where I'm learning Spanish without any flashcards. And I'm showing how that's possible. But my preference is for flashcards. And should I hide my preference? No. And it's not even just a preference. It's just based on my experience learning Esperanto, Mandarin, Chinese, Spanish, that literally it helps you more than just not using it. So if you can use it, use it. If you don't like it, then don't use it. Like it's not like you're gonna join my Discord and say down with the flashcards and the next thing you know my mods have sent you to the Shadow Realm. Like you can do whatever you want. I'm just going to give you...
É isso aí, se você gosta, você usa. Se não gosta, não usa. Tem vários recursos na internet. Não é um que você não gosta que você vai ficar forçando você também a usar, né?
A realistic insight about what works.
Like all of this setup is testimony to how well he understands the language he's learning. And I think that attracts people who want to appear more academic, but for someone like me who just wants to have fun...
Bruh, I've never at any point said like I'm the academic type. I am a programmer and therefore I will design systems that work to my skill set, but like I'm not the type of person who's sitting here saying, oh, I'm fucking an academic. You don't see me prefacing my my evil dear with Professor Evil Dear with a doctorate in linguistics or anything like that, because, well, one, I don't have it, and two, even if I did, it'd probably sound pretty cringe. And if you even look at my goddamn YouTube channel, bro, like, look at my description, okay? I'm a game developer, actor, lover of languages. I speak Esperanto C1, English B2. Mandarin Chinese B1 plus, and Spanish absolute beginner. Like, I could bullshit and, like, up these numbers. Languages. I speak Esperanto C1, English B2. Mandarin Chinese B1 plus, and Spanish absolute beginner. Like, I could bullshit and, like, up these numbers, you know, up these numbers. Like, I could do that, make myself look better, but I don't. I'm just honest about my experiences.
At a bar with my Argentinian girlfriend, it's not a great commercial for picking up flashcards.
Well, if it didn't sell you on using flashcards, it's your loss. Like, I don't care.
My reflection after watching both videos and reading through both transcripts is...
Mas falou que não ia assistir os dois.
Wait, so you did watch both videos and you read through both transcripts? That's more than I did. You lied at the start. You lied, bro. You said you hadn't watched either.
I think Steve is much more focused on the meta argument that says the brain learns a language a certain way, and therefore our methods should conform to the way our brain learns languages. I think Evil Dia kind of tries to square flashcards.
Only massive reading and listening can give you that volume of connections your brain needs to learn a language.
Cards with a network of experiences model, but I got the impression he wasn't super interested in that meta discussion.
I don't care about how people think things work. I care about the outcome. What actually happens once you do the thing. And then I do a comparison, a cross comparison. Okay, was this efficient compared to this? Now, we can sit here and have a semantics battle or a battle about how graphs work, okay? You know, behind the scenes, and what is a node and what is a connection, and what can be classified as multiple nodes and what is not, and whether something is in a category or not. Like, we can do that, but it's pointless at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the important thing is, does it work? And it does. Like, I've shown time and time again that it works.
More practical case. He makes pragmatic arguments as to why flashcards can help you, but those arguments don't necessarily contradict anything Steve said by my reading. Flashcards could
And I wasn't contradicting him so much. I was, because he was showing flashcards used on his service, and they were one-to-one word translations, and I was like, that's a bad way of doing it, don't do that. In fact, that's probably not the recommended way to use flashcards. So I was contradicting him in that.
E o Steve Kaufman falando do flashcards, mas no site dele, no Lang, sei lá como pronuncia, tem como você salvar como flashcards as palavras que você não sabe.
Because he was presenting as if that is the recommended way. Now, I know that's how we all learned flashcards back in school with the little paper ones, but come on, we've moved beyond that point by now.
Target weaknesses in your speaking and understanding. They could be a better active retrieval exercise than input, but still have all the problems Steve lists in his video.
Yes, and that's why I was saying don't do it like that.
Dia really isn't contradicting Steve in his arguments. Evil Dia says in his experience, flashcards can get you to fluency 3 times faster, but speed to fluency is only really one dimension of language learning. Let's grant that they can get you to some level of fluency faster. Do they do that at the cost of depth? I'm not...
No, not necessarily, because what is depth when it comes to a language? Depth is usually an understanding of the culture and just having more words, basically. Like having more words, more verbs, maybe some more complex structures, proverbs, stuff like that. That is what depth is when you're getting past, like, you know, the B2 level. And that, yeah, you will get via input, but that's not what the purpose of using them is for. The purpose, in my mind, and the way I talk about them on this channel, and I know people talk about them different ways, but the purpose is to prime your brain to help it either produce or hear certain set structures, and maybe words if those words are being problematic, or proverbs, things like that, information dense stuff. Like, that's what I use it for. It's not to learn a whole language.
Arguing that point here, I'm just showing how Steve and Evil Dia's arguments aren't mutually exclusive. And now let me give you my very basic grug brain take on flashcards after watching this entire saga unfold. I have a very simple view of language learning. I'm okay with just taking an input to understand the language if I can do that. If I can understand something, I'm going to choose that 100 times over, setting up any rational system to try to improve myself. I don't use flashcards because there's really nothing for me that I'm in dire need of speeding up or improving. I wouldn't argue against flashcards so fervently in the beginner phase because in that phase, you know, you're really just trying to get a grip on the language. But once you have a grip on the language, to me, it's hard to understand why you wouldn't just keep listening and keep speaking. Like, if you guys know me, you know that my...
Okay, I think I've been clear already about the benefits. The listening side of things is to help you with those information dense things. The speaking side is to help you reinforce good habits. Okay, you can just start speaking. There's plenty of people that speak the language fluently, absolutely butcher the language because like they practice the same old pattern over and over, and it was a bad practice from the beginning. Okay, you can do that. And then there's people who would just stutter their way through everything. You can do that if you want, okay? But that's what I see the production deck as being useful for. And the reading deck is really only appropriate to languages like, you know, fucking Chinese or maybe Japanese, something like that. Like it's not one you're going to use for any other language. So it's very context dependent in this video or in my previous video.
The solution to everything in life is just to do a thing better, do that thing. I know this video is kind of technical, but at the end of the day, I just have a pretty simple reason I don't do flashcards. I grant that if I had to take a CEFR exam tomorrow and I got killed if I didn't get at least C1, then flashcards would make a lot more sense. But currently, that's not my situation. Fine.
I'm not sure what you're trying to say there. Are you saying you're not a C1? No, I don't know.
Finally, I run a comprehensible input website called Langualytics where you can find user-sourced comprehensible input at your level in whatever language you're trying to learn. I don't have Esperanto. I am sorry, Evil Dia. It's free.
If you had Esperanto, bro, half your content would be my content.
You don't have to sign up to look around. The link is always in the description, and I will see you guys in the next.
Okay, so that's his video. That's his channel. You can go sub to him. I am still not sure what was happening here. So you were explaining that me and Steve are not contradicting each other, and I agree in many ways we weren't. But I was pointing out in my video that Steve was misrepresenting how to use flashcards and the benefits to flashcards. And then I think you were trying to say that I was showing that I'm still not quite sure, because I know you're talking about context and stuff, and you're basically saying, oh, well, it's still at the end of the day.
Mano, resumindo, acabou o vídeo, tá? Falta 20 segundos, 30 segundos. Resumindo, cada um tem uma ideia diferente, cada um tem uma metodologia diferente, um complemento da metodologia. Você quer usar o Enki? Você quer usar flashcards na sua metodologia? Não, então não usa. Pronto. Eu quero usar, então usa. Tá? É isso. Existem várias outras metodologias para você unificar junto com o seu aprendizado de idiomas, ok? Se todo mundo resolvesse esses problemas assim, na Terra seria muito mais tranquilo, você não acha? Fique aí o questionamento para vocês. Adiós.